Things are happening, and they are happening fast. The rate at which technology is evolving can be very alarming and unsettling. We used to have people who could set us at ease, big 6'7" gentle giants like Michael Crichton, who with his sonorous voice would let us know that it was all going to be all right on The Charlie Rose Show. Well, Crichton is dead now, but even though the man left us too soon, it still seems Crichton has the uncanny ability to comment on our modern predicaments in ways we could scarcely have imagined at the time. Who knew that perhaps his least heralded cinematic effort, one of his few flops, a movie so cut up by the studio that the final film barely makes any sense, could still have so much left to give in the year 2026. The film is Looker, released in 1981, written and directed by Crichton. Albert Finney plays Dr. Larry Roberts, a cool, competent, and smooth Beverly Hills plastic surgeon. He strolls into his office, the man of the house, endeavoring to make self-conscious LA models even more beautiful than they already are under his steady knife. His patients love and trust him like a father figure, and they all want to have sex with him to some degree or another. Also, they're being mysteriously murdered, their spectacular deaths made to look like suicides. It's not long before Larry finds himself ensnared in what looks to be some kind of conspiracy, which seems to have its origin in a weird conglomerate called Digital Matrix, run by the shady James Coburn bad guy character. The company does a lot of things.
We're diversified into fast foods, leisure wear, pharmaceuticals. We do high technology, perceptual devices.
They also digitally scan models into a computer and make guns that cause strange unconscious lapses in time for the victim of its light ray. A one-stop shop, really. With all this manifold technology, they must be up to something really bad, and Finney's great task is to stop them before it's too late. I'm guessing that Crichton had a vision that appeared to him in his mind. Beautiful women, models, are being murdered by some mysterious force. This is a Kino idea, as evidenced from the opening sequence in which Playboy Playmate of the Year 1981, Terry Wells, is transfixed by a mysterious flashing light in her pristine pink apartment. The ultimate Barbie girl dwelling. We admire Wells as she preens herself in this little princess tower as the opening credits play. Wells answers the door. A blinding flash of light renders her immobile. She's forgetful all of a sudden. An item suddenly appears on her bed. Out of place. A box. Looking as if it's supposed to contain something, but what? Our model Terry also kind of caresses this interesting shape. Okay. Another flash, she's frozen, but comes to momentarily, only it's too late. She's fallen out of the window to her death, leaving behind a yipping dog and a mysterious shadow lingering behind the curtain. Great hook. So someone is killing beautiful women with some strange kind of weapon. But why? Well, keep watching. But for now, just enjoy the vibe. It's a spectacular show. See this scene. Larry decides to follow up with a frenzied patient who earlier visited his office.
Because they're going to kill me, that's why.
Well, who is?
They're killing all the girls that are perfect.
He's taking matters into his own hands, playing detective to find out what's troubling her. But before he can even get to her apartment, oh my gosh, she's falling headlong from her window and diving spectacularly onto the hood of a car. This is an amazing stunt. Maybe one of the most convincing on-screen hurtling to one's death I've ever seen, and quite ignominious in that. Limbs flailing about as this woman slams, and I mean slams, into a car. It's incredible. Who is killing these girls and why? Finney soon finds himself in a bit of a pickle. He's become a person of interest for the police. His drip is too hard. His bitch is too bad. Albert Finney, they'll kill you.
You sure about that? Quite sure.
Even in this largely forgotten Crichton outing, you can see the man thinking a few decades ahead, even if all the concepts don't necessarily bear fruit or work to form a coherent story. So what have we got? We get the photon gun. Reminds me a lot of this supposed discombobulator, so famously supposedly used in the apprehension of Venezuelan dictator Nicolas Maduro a few months back.
You talked about the weapon, the discombobulator.
Tom, it discombobulated everything.
The discombobulator just knocked everything.
Well, it did something.
We get an early introduction to the looksmaxxing plague that has taken the internet by storm. The concept of obsessively analyzing facial structure and the supposed objective quality of beauty.
Her midface is way too long. Obviously, she's got the jowls coming in, horrible nasolabial folds. Horrible total facial width to height ratio, just really bad age indicators, but obviously at 30, that's not something really that's going to surprise me.
My nose is 0.2 millimeters too narrow, and my cheekbones are 0.4 millimeters too high, and my chin has a little 0.1 bump here, and my areolar distance is 5 millimeters, and I have a mole here on my ribs, so I need plastic surgery.
And a nascent prediction surrounding AI generative video technology and the prospect of completely realistic digital people, something which promises to phase out actors and other creatives in the film industry completely if it were to come to fruition.
You killed Jeffrey Epstein, you animal!
These poor actors having to say lines like that.
They're not actors, they're computer-generated images.
All I get is this.
I've talked a lot about Crichton on this channel. I've done video essays on his films Coma and Westworld. I think it's fair to say that this is his weakest effort, but that doesn't mean it's not interesting. Finding himself in the unenviable position of being a suspect in the girl's murder, Finney befriends Cindy Fairmont, a beautiful model, of course, and the more level-headed of the bunch, who in her desire to sleep with Finney at least retains some dignity. Cindy is mixed up with Digital Matrix as well, so Finney accompanies her to the filming of a Digital Matrix commercial where the director, oddly, is taking great pains to match her movements to a computer.
Not enough body twist, according to the computer.
I'm sick and tired of this computer. Why can't we just do the scene?
Come on. For 30
These are
seconds.
the instructions they've both been given, and there are two dweebs holed up in a nearby van analyzing every take. Cindy needs to line up with what the computer wants, for whatever reason. Well, anyway, she's not getting it. She does take after take, much to the chagrin of the director and crew. In this hypnotic sequence where Cindy falls repeatedly, her body landing in the sand, as if with every fall the throes of passion revealed, the ecstasy of being used like a plaything, in this case the pawn of a computer and not measuring up. All this is set to the excellent score by Barry Dvorak, this bubbly kind of synth bopping that I just absolutely love. How often have we heard of directors who demand multiple takes of actors being described as sadistic? Yet here we have Crichton in a kind of metatextual way demanding more takes in a scene, demanding more takes. And what is the take? Well, it's a beautiful woman leaping through the air and undulating in ecstasy on the ground, again and again. One more, we didn't get it. And I apologize, I've gone all this time referring to Cindy by her character name, but the actress is Susan Dey, legendary teen heartthrob of the early 1970s for her role in the television series The Partridge Family. I first became aware of Susan Dey more than a decade ago when I was listening to a mix of old 70s soft rock on YouTube and found maybe the most boomer-core video on the internet. A montage of 360p quality Susan Dey photos set to music. The title of the video is Bread, Baby I'ma Want You, with lyrics, Would you re-elect Obama in 2012? This is enough evidence for me to know that Susan Dey held a deep sway over the boomer consciousness, and perhaps Crichton himself, for her career had certainly not skyrocketed since the end of the series, and this is one of a handful of feature films she ever appeared in. That being said, she has a very robust athletic presence in the movie. This girl next door, tomboy attainability, developed an age that is irresistible to most men. She's good-natured, fun, and a good, energetic foil to Finney, who sort of moseys around the first act in a state of perpetual bemusement as Crichton shows off the tech. But here's where it gets interesting. The master plan of the big industrialists. They give Finney the full rundown, market research, tracking the eye of the consumer and where it is drawn during the commercial, and altering a computer model to fit the involuntary movement of the eye. They tested on Finney and they hit him with the Voight comp machine a year before Blade Runner even came out. So the goal is to retain the attention of the passive television-watching consumer, to almost hypnotize them with models and spokespeople tailored to the subconscious. So where do they get the computer models? Well, they scan real women into the computer in this giant Jack Kirby machine. A great visual sequence as Susan Dey and her naked body are audited by the computer and downloaded for posterity, her likeness now able to be used in perpetuity forever. Cindy receives some money for the entire process, but unwittingly is putting herself out of a job. Maybe royalties will come, but who knows?
Hi, I'm Cindy. I'm the perfect female type, 18 to 25. I'm here to sell for you.
Larry and Cindy return to Larry's beautiful beachside apartment. Suspicious of Digital Matrix, Larry has taken a security card from the complex and hides it in his house. The mustachioed assailant returns with the gun and hits Larry with the light ray as he presumably searches the house for the card multiple times, and Larry experiences these weird time lapses. He looks outside. Wham! And then people are gone from the beach. The clock has advanced forward an hour. He reaches for a beer in his fridge. Wham! More time lost. The fridge icing over from being open so long. This scene struck me as, first of all, well done and mysterious, but also recalls the feeling of, doom scrolling. Going to your fridge, reflexively pulling out your phone, scrolling Twitter, abandoning your minor responsibility to close the fridge or turn off the light or whatever, and just having time sucked into this device while the world ticks along outside. Larry, having been, violated in this way, decides to make good on his possession of the key card, and he and Cindy sneak into Digital Matrix. They find the blueprints to the gun and begin to understand the more sinister technology behind the computer-generated models, the glowing blue light coming from their eyes.
The body, the thickness, the richness of utterly desirable hair.
Suddenly, the duo are in the crosshairs of the mustachioed strongman. He blasts Finney with the gun and then begins to have this kind of phantom battle with him, in which it appears Finney is being pummeled by a ghost. This is, of course, an interesting concept and a cool scene, though the visual representation of two people in a battle to freeze each other is a little clumsy. This continues for another 15 minutes or so, Finney and the tough guy trading off on freezing each other in an office building and on the road, which in, Finney's car is a really fun sequence. It culminates with Finney donning a security outfit to infiltrate Coburn's big shindig, a conference packed with luminaries in which they will be hypnotized by the sinister commercials. Strangely, this is where Crichton's predictive powers fail. He imagines a scenario of digital computer filmmaking, but one where only people can be easily generated, but backgrounds and sets must be practical. This funhouse of commercial sets is where Cindy is being held and Finney sneaks around, evading gunfire while trying to locate her, while the example commercials are oddly broadcast live to the viewing audience. In reality, during the advent of CGI, this turned out to be the exact opposite. It was backgrounds, creatures, and sets that were easy to generate, and the human being, which still confounded traditional CGI artists. That seems to be coming to an end, though, with the AI technology, but still, this is a creative and visually interesting idea which allows for an almost too many cooks style invasion of serene, idealized commercial spaces by violence and incongruous characters. In this man with the golden gun-esque funhouse where Finney does battle against his enemies. It's a cool idea and throws mud on the predictable, cynical nature of the commercials of Crichton's day. Commercials often appear through the film at ironic times, and their presence during moments of violence or disorientation makes their pedestrian sales pitch take on a sinister aura. Crichton was no fan of TV, something he seemed to have saw as a dumbing down of the masses. But that brings us to this. After Finney overcomes his foe, do we get our answer? The answer to why the girls were being murdered? No, we don't. What? Well, here's the deal. The movie was not testing well and was cut up by the studio. There's actually a deleted scene in which Larry and Cindy confront the evil John Reston, and he gives some kind of answer, but it was cut.
You see, the three dead girls and Cynthia here were walking examples of our computer research. They were the measurements, the database. And it's corporate policy to shred all old documents to keep it out of the hands of competition.
Even though this moment in the cutscene is really still not much of an answer, it's a good moment, and it would have broken up the repetitive laser gun chase of the third act and puts the villain's plan in more perspective. Which is weird, considering there is a scene that absolutely belongs on the cutting room floor that was left in. The scene in which Cindy, believing she is marked for death, goes to visit her parents for perhaps the last time, and finds that they're, total couch potatoes, worse than zombies. It's beyond going for a laugh. It's just really stupid. It's more over the top than a similar scene that you would see a few years later in Repo Man. And just plain doesn't fit. I guess it was left in to drive the theme of commercials being bad and the underhanded way in which corporations manipulate us into thinking we need certain things to live a full life, which I suppose works in concert with the idea of the unfulfilled girls feeling they need plastic surgery, but honestly, the anti-marketing, anti-capitalist thing has been done to death, and the more interesting element of the movie that makes it especially relevant today is the idea around creating digital people or wholly digital films, and the effect that might have on the public, which really feeds into a larger anxiety and larger theme around let's face it, computers replacing everybody. Looker is this wonderful pastiche of images and concepts. It's groping at something, but doesn't exactly get there. Beyond the storm and drong of hypnotic commercials, weird guns, etc., sits this kind of subconscious fear of replacement by computers. I know that Coburn's plan, his killing of the models, makes no sense, but what it symbolizes to me is the symbolic death of the beautiful woman's place in culture. Of course, beauty will always be prized, but it might not hold the same social symbolism or have the same status gravitas when models, actresses, etc. are made redundant by computer, when a whole line of work that elevated certain women to celebrity is eliminated. In a way, the death of the models and the idea of the model in society is standing in for the replacement of humanity, or at least our culture and its current hierarchy, by computers. And in that way, the murders remain in the mind and important. Maybe Looker doesn't really make sense because it's just an explosion of Crichton's id. Or maybe the choice to make Larry a plastic surgeon positions him as one in a long line of augmenters, tweaking and working towards perfection, the computer being the ultimate augmenter, perfecter, and perhaps eventual creator of beauty.